If I was stranded on an island and can only pick one skincare active to use for the rest of my life, what would it be? As a board-certified dermatologist with almost 20 years of experience, tretinoin is the gold standard of skincare actives to transform skin into healthy, beautiful skin over a lifetime. Today, I'm sharing why tretinoin and with its derivative retinol are probably two of the most impactful skincare actives for your skin. I'll go over the benefits, the mechanism of action, the pathophysiology, the effect on skin histology, and the immense impact that these two skincare actives have on the skin and how they can help you. Also, how to incorporate them into your routine, because many patients get turned off by the use of these active ingredients because they use it the wrong way or too much or too fast, or they have a lot of irritation. But when you use it the right way, start low and go slow, you'll see the benefit over a lifetime of healthy, beautiful skin at every age. I'll also go into why these alternatives just don't match up and take a deep dive into the science behind these alternatives and sometimes marketing that can be a little bit misleading when marketing alternatives to retinol and tretinoin. So let's dive into the science and see what active ingredients are best for your skin. My name is Dr. Stephanie Kappel, and I'm a board-certified, double fellowship-trained cosmetic dermatologist, and I'm here to be a source of honest and true, unsponsored, non-biased, science-based content on YouTube in a world that's flooded with misinformation, clickbait education, and dermatologists with sponsored content. I want to be a source of truth and honest information that is backed by science and what I truly recommend is best for my patients, not because I'm in contract or a paid sponsorship or affiliate with a company to do so. So let's take a deep dive into tretinoin and retinol and see how these can impact your skin and how to safely and effectively use them over a lifetime. So what is tretinoin? Tretinoin is a prescription strength retinoic acid, which is actually a vitamin A derivative. And a lot of people know that tretinoin can be beneficial for their skin, but they're too afraid to try it or they've had a bad experience with it. I would reference my earlier video where I talk about tretinoin and how to slowly incorporate tretinoin into your skincare routine, depending on your skin type and other ailments and other confounding factors that may impact your skin's ability to build a tolerance and to get used to tretinoin as a skincare active. But for those of my patients and for those of you who've used tretinoin over the years, you can definitely see the impact that it has on their skin. When I'm a physician and I'm walking into my clinic, when I'm walking through this door right here, I can tell within minutes if someone has been using tretinoin over years or if they're not. It's just something that you can sense as a dermatologist. There's a certain look to the skin. Pores are small, skin is nice and tight, skin is chock full of collagen, brown spots and melasma, chloasma are very controlled with even tone and texture and pigmentation, and it's not for everyone, and I get that. But after watching my last video on tretinoin and how to incorporate it into your skincare routine, if you just give it a try and do it the right way, start low and slow, you'll see the impact over time. Because tretinoin, although it is a prescription strength retinoic acid, can definitely, cause irritation if you use too much too fast, and there's also a 2-day delay. So when someone uses it for the first time and the next day they're like, oh, it didn't even do anything to my skin, I can take more. There's a 2-day delay between the time you use a tretinoin and the impact on your skin. So most people will anticipate a non-response and use a little bit too much too fast, and then they're really irritated 2 to 4 days later, and then they're turned off of it and they said that they can't tolerate it. So watch that video to learn a little bit more about tretinoin. I'm also going to be talking about retinol in this video because unlike tretinoin, which is prescription strength only, retinol is an over-the-counter skincare active that also has immense impacts in the skin and can have the same effects that tretinoin can, just maybe not as powerful, but when used every day and when used consistently can definitely have dramatic changes with skin health, with the appearance, with hyperpigmentation, with anti-aging, and with acne and all other sorts of skin ailments as well. So hopefully after watching this video, you'll be able to incorporate retinol or tretinoin or even both into your skincare routine and reap the benefits that these two active ingredients can have on the skin. And out of all the skincare actives in medicine and in dermatology, there is no skincare active that has been more researched with more data supporting its use and healthfulness in the skin than retinoic acid or tretinoin. So just keep that in mind. You can do Google searches, you can talk to people who are skin experts who are on YouTube or on social media talking about positive or negative things about retinol or tretinoin, but pound for pound, evidence-based medicine and literature, research, science, dermatology boards, all of the things that we learn as physicians in our our curriculum and in our didactic lectures and in our continuous medical education, attending meetings, tretinoin and retinol have the two most, impactful effects on the skin that is supported by evidence-based medicine, clinical research trials, and anecdotal data as well. So my experience with tretinoin, I started in my early 20s. I think I even dabbled in it when I was a teenager because I had a mother who really was into skin health, thanks mom if you're watching this, and incorporated tretinoin into my skincare routine when I was at a very young age as a young budding dermatologist. And I feel that over the years I have reaped the benefits of using tretinoin over a lifetime. But when I first started out, just like many of you, I would just do, instead of a pea-sized amount mixed with a hydrator or a moisturizer, I would just put a huge, maybe quarter-sized amount, and I'd put it all over my face. And the next day I was like, wow, I can tolerate this really well with minimal irritation. I'm gonna use more. And I remember I applied it the second day, and then the third and fourth day, I really paid the price. I think I couldn't even smile without having fissures and cracks in my lips and bleeding and itching and peeling and desquamating. And I was super turned off, and I said, I'm never gonna use this again. But then I learned a little bit more about it and how it's important to start at a lower percentage, start less frequently, mix it with a hydrator or a moisturizer. It won't decrease the efficacy of the product, but it will help decrease the sensitization and the irritation. And then I saw the effects that it had on my skin. Now, when I was 19 and 20 years old, I struggled with acne. So my acne got better. My melasma got better. My skin texture got better. Even though I was young and a teenager in early 20s, the texture of my skin improved. And I think that just starting, low and slow and going at my own pace and gradually building a tolerance really has had a benefit on my skin now that I'm in my late 40s. I can't believe I'm in my late 40s now. But now have been using, 20 years plus of tretinoin and retinoic acid and retinol. I think that it's been one of the best things that I've done for my skin besides doing lasers and using sunscreen every day. Okay, you guys, I had to switch rooms because they needed the Fraxel. My amazing laser nurse specialist, Stephanie, needed the Fraxel, so now I'm in the M-Sculpt room. If you guys haven't done M-Sculpt for your abs and your booty, I highly recommend it. I'm obsessed with this. Also, I just did Fraxel on my neck, so if you guys see any irritation on my neck, that was about 4 days ago. Okay, moving on, talking about retinol and tretinoin. So tretinoin is retinoic acid, and retinol is an over-the-counter, non-prescription active that is within the vitamin A derivative family. And both of these skincare actives can stimulate collagen, stimulate elastin synthesis, reverse sun damage, and transform the skin barrier to a stronger skin barrier, thicken the dermis of the skin. Now, a lot of people have the misconception, and I've seen people on YouTube say things like tretinoin thins the skin, and that's absolutely not true. And when you look at the people who are saying this, it's usually people who do not have a MD and they cannot prescribe tretinoin in the first place, so they're not going to recommend it because it's something that's out of their scope of practice and something that they can't sell to you, so they're not going to be behind it. Most dermatologists, almost all dermatologists, will not argue that tretinoin and retinoic acid is one of the most impactful actives for the skin, and it's usually non-dermatologist or non-derm trained people who say that tretinoin can thin the skin. There's an immense amount of data and clinical research that has showed that tretinoin actually thickens the skin. Then the misconception comes from this. When you look at the epidermis, you have the skin cross-section. On cross-section, you have the epidermis, and then you have the dermis, which is made up of the papillary dermis, and then the reticular dermis, and then you have the subcutaneous fat, and then you have the underlying structures like muscle, fascia, and all the underlying structures below. But in the dermis, where all the magic happens, that's where all your structural matrix proteins are. Your collagen, your elastin, your glycosaminoglycans, all those structural supporting proteins that give skin that smooth, bouncy turgor that decreases over time, that thins out over time. That's why we get crepey, lax skin when we get older, because we lose the collagen and the elastin and the extracellular matrix proteins as we get older. But when we use products like a tretinoin or a retinol that increase upregulation of synthesis of these proteins, your skin gets smoother, it gets firmer, it gets tighter. And even someone as old as me, as 47 years old, who's been using tretinoin her whole life, it really upregulates your skin to make those proteins that your skin cells stopped making because they became senescent and lazy and like zombie cells. They become tired. They're not as active as they used to be. They need to be stimulated by a vitamin A derivative to upregulate synthesis of these extracellular matrix proteins. So when you look at the skin and you look at the epidermis, you have the stratum corneum layer, which is the dead skin cell layer that lays on top. This is just a bunch of dead keratinocytes or skin cells that have lost their nuclei and are just basically like stacked dead cells that kind of give this protective barrier on the external surface of the skin. And then under that, you have the stratum spinosum, and you have the stratum granulosum, you have the stratum basale. You have a lot of different layers. Now, the stratum corneum thins with tretinoin use, but that's just the dead skin cell layer on top. If you look at an older patient who really doesn't care for his or her skin, and they have that dull, lustreless, almost gray-like skin. I remember when I was in medical school and I'd rotate through the ICU and I'd look at these patients who had been hospitalized, and I'd look at their skin and I'm like, why does it look gray and dusky and lackluster? That's because of course I was a budding dermatologist in the ICU with all these cardiovascular issues and everything, and I'm like looking at their skin. But of course I was managing their multi-system organ failure, but I would be looking at their skin and I would think that, wow, their stratum corneum layer is so thick because they're not exfoliating, their skin cells aren't proliferating, they're not having increased transepidermal time. And what happens is the tretinoin will decrease that dead stratum corneum layer off the skin, which unveils healthy, viable cells underneath. So it thins that part of the skin, but it thickens the part of the skin where there's more collagen, and that's where it's the most impactful. The papillary reticular dermis thickens with increased tretinoin use because it does stimulate collagen synthesis, and it does stimulate synthesis of extracellular matrix proteins. It does reinforce the skin barrier. So the portions of the skin underneath the stratum corneum layer get thicker, but the stratum corneum layer, which is just a bunch of dead cells, gets thinner, but that gives more vibrant, more beautiful skin that looks alive and healthy, not dull and lackluster. When you look at a skin biopsy and histology, the stratum corneum layer does look thinner when you use tretinoin, but you want that thinner anyway. A thinner stratum corneum looks better and is an indicator of healthier skin than thinning out of the other layers of the skin. All the other layers of the skin become thicker and healthier and more active and more viable and more beautiful. So anybody who's taken pharmacology or molecular biology, organic chemistry, or just basic chemistry courses or biochemistry, when you look at conversions of pathways in the human body, there are steps within a pathway for synthesis of certain molecules, and you have to pay attention whether these arrows or cofactors or cofactor enzymes are going in one direction or the other direction. You have to remember everything in science is balance. It's always in a state of flux. There's no black and white. There's always states of flux in the skin, in metabolic pathways, in the human body. And so, for example, it's a misconception when people think that you can go from retinol to retinaldehyde to retinoic acid, because these conversion pathways, if you look at the arrow in your chemistry books, it goes both ways. If you're applying retinaldehyde to your skin, a certain amount of that is converting to retinol, so you're still getting retinol in your skin before going to retinoic acid, and vice versa. If you put retinol on your skin, there's back and forth pathways that are going through retinaldehyde, retinol, retinoic acid in the synthesis, and all of these enzymes are going back and forth in a constant state of flux, which is actually a good thing. So when you hear the marketing term of retinoic acid or retinaldehyde, or retinol is easier for sensitive skin or a little bit less irritating, there is some truth to that, but know that everything gets converted to everything else when it's in the skin. So what it has to do with is the formulation and the other molecular structures that it is configured with and that it's formulated with to make it less irritating, more impactful, less impactful, more responsive or less responsive, and so forth. So just remember that, because when people market retinaldehyde, you're getting retinol in your skin. And when you apply retinol to your skin, a certain component of it is getting converted to retinaldehyde as well. So just be smarter with your understanding of science, and I'm here to be kind of like your scientific educational fairy, to kind of be on your shoulder when you're trying to decide what products to use. And I always say, just start with a product that you may have heard about or a friend has used and had a great response with, but just know that your skin type may be different. You may have a different glandular component to your skin histology may be different, your barrier may be different, your skin thickness may be different, and what works for someone may not work for you. But just kind of do as much research as you can and see what your skin responds to. And if it's not irritating your skin, but it's also not getting your results, that's not good either. You want products that are going to induce histologic changes, which result in clinical improvement of the skin without being too irritated or over drying or disruptive of your skin barrier. So like using retinaldehyde or retinol and saying that being under the assumption you're only getting that pure form of that active ingredient is not true, because again, these conversions are going back and forth and they're constantly in flux with the chemical configuration of these molecules in the skin. It's kind of like when I teach the dermatology residents, when I was a professor at UCLA for dermatology, this is how I would teach, by kind of setting example of things that are a little bit more understandable. Say you're standing at a red light and you're like, man, I've been at this signal all day, I'm gonna be at a red light for 100% of the time. No, the street signal turns red and yellow and green, so it may be red for 50% of the time or 60% of the time, but the rest of the time it's gonna be green or yellow. So it's not, again, and it's always in a constant state of flux. So if you're using retinaldehyde, there is a component of retinol that will be in there. And again, instead of focusing on the active ingredient, look at the entire formulation, because that's what determines if a skincare product is going to achieve clinical improvement and is going to be too irritating or be less irritating on your skin. It has everything to do with the formulation and what else that active ingredient is mixed with, the vehicle delivery systems that it is engineered with, and other confounding factors within that formulation. You know, the stability, the efficacy of transportation, getting it to where it needs to go. So when you're talking about a retinol, for example, in my skincare line, MD Air, we have the RXR retinol, and it's in a microencapsulated vehicle delivery system that packs a punch with efficacy, but doesn't cause sensitization and increased irritation because of the way that it's formulated. And I knew how to formulate this because I've spent 20 years studying the skin and looking at it under the microscope and understanding the pharmacokinetics of how these skincare actives work. That's why I didn't want to be a formulator for a big, industrial skincare line. I wanted my own boutique line because I knew exactly what products needed to go into the skin, how to get them there, and how to remain stable and effective. It's kind of like having a retinol without a good vehicle delivery system. It's like sending a spaceship into outer space without an astronaut in it. Or it's like sending an astronaut without a spaceship. You need the spaceship to get the astronaut to where he needs to go, or she needs to go, and have them delivered to that destination to do their job effectively and safely without combusting or getting set on fire, and just having it remain stable, transporting it there where it needs to do its job, and having it in the area of the skin, affecting the cells through signal transduction pathways, binding receptors, to have it have the end result that you want it to have. Stimulating collagen, reinforcing the skin barrier, minimizing transepidermal water loss, synthesizing more elastin fibers, synthesizing more extracellular matrix proteins, and to give skin that beautiful effect that we're all looking for. So what about the alternatives like rambutan extract, alfalfa extract, rosehip oil? These are safe vitamin A derivatives, but they don't have the data and clinical evidence-based medicine to support them, but that's not to say you can't use them. In my opinion as a dermatologist, I always say find a retinol that best suits you, that your skin can become accustomed to without increased irritation. Maybe use a tretinoin once a week if you can increase your tolerance to using a tretinoin 3 to 5 times a week, even better. Remember, it's better to go with a lower percentage with more consistent use than a higher percentage less frequently. But if you want to use rosehip oil or alfalfa extract or an alternative, that's fine. But I also want to increase awareness to where there's a lot of overzealous promising, fake science and marketing kind of, promoting these products where they don't have the clinical sound data to really support their effects in the skin. And also, being a dermatologist for almost 20 years, I've seen the effects of these alternatives, and they're usually underwhelming, and patients spend a lot of money on these products, and they're usually disappointed when compared to the effects that you get from a good retinol or a tretinoin with use in the skin. So bakuchi oil and rosehip oil. I know a lot of you guys are going to ask me about this, and there's a lot of marketing that says they have similar benefits to retinol and tretinoin or retinoic acid, and there may be some truth to that, but the data is lacking with clinical evidence-based medicine supporting their use. Again, if you want to try these products, and drop a comment in the comment section if you've been using these products and have been seeing a great positive response in the skin, yes, they can have similar benefits to vitamin A derivatives, but pound for pound with research and evidence-based medicine, they really don't stand up to the effects of these other skincare goats who are, more impactful for the skin. But again, if you have a product that you like and your skin it well, you can go ahead and use it. But also remember, if your skin's not getting irritated from it, but then you're also not getting a result, then you might as well not even be using anything at all. For example, if people want to use bakuchi oil and they don't want to use a retinol or a tretinoin because it's too irritating, and yes, the bakuchi oil is not having any irritation effects on your skin, but you're also not getting the benefits of it, then what's the point? I think it's more important to understand how to use an appropriate vitamin A derivative like retinol or like retinoic acid or even retinaldehyde, which usually has less increased sensitization, but also you want to see an impact on your skin. Within a week or two of use, your skin should look smoother, it should be tighter, it should be brighter. Your friends, without you mentioning it, should say, what have you been doing to your skin? Usually people who are using my NBR products, my patients will say, all my friends have noticed, they said that I'm glowing, and I haven't even had to say a word. People are asking me if I changed my makeup. People are asking me, if I've gotten a good night's sleep. No, you're just using products that actually work and can induce histologic and clinical changes in your skin. And again, consistency is key. Using a vitamin A derivative with a lower percentage and more frequent use, again, not being afraid to mix it with a moisturizer or a hydrator. You can use the sandwich method where you put a hydrator on, then a pea-sized amount of vitamin A derivative, and then more hydrator to have that sandwich method. Or you could use the 1-to-1 method where you mix a 1-to-1 sized amount of a pea-sized amount of a vitamin A derivative with the same equal portion of a hydrator or moisturizer, mix it in the palm of your hands and apply. And using it over a long period of time will have more clinical impactful results than any other skincare active on the market. So that's my take on retinol and retinoic acid, also known as tretinoin.